everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. So today we're going to take a look at the most important part of our belly dance anatomy, your hips. So before I start, I want to make a huge disclaimer. I am not a certified physician, I'm not a trained healthcare professional or a physical therapist. I'm just someone who loves dance and loves anatomy as a result. And I just want to share a lot of the things that I have learned about anatomy, specifically hip anatomy, in my 10 years practicing, studying belly dance. So one of the first things I noticed when people first come to belly dance to take classes is that a lot of people feel a little bit insecure and restricted in their hip mobility, in their hip movements. A lot of people say, I'm too stiff, my hips can't move that way. And I think that it's important to understand where the hip movements are coming from and how they work, their mechanics, and how we can better understand that in order to access those movements and actually enjoy all the benefits that belly dance can bring us. I think belly dance is an excellent tool to actually develop that hip mobility. So if you're feeling like, oh, my hips are too stiff, I need to stretch it out, I need more flexibility, or just I can't move my hips that way, actually practicing belly dance can help you get there. Always, of course, after consulting your physician. It's very important to keep that in mind, right? And the way that I like to introduce belly dance movements for beginning students, especially people who never danced before, who don't come from a background in dance or even any other physical discipline, is to go through our bodies, go through our joints, and examine all the different movement possibilities, all the angles and planes that we can move our body in. So for example, you have your neck, your head, and you can move it side to side like this, forward and back. You can also twist to the side, and you can also move it in the horizontal plane. So I can slide my head horizontally and also front and back horizontally, and I can make a little square or even a circle, right? And I also, of course, can move like this. What I cannot do is rotate 360 like The Exorcist. Then we have our shoulder joint, and our shoulder joint also has a lot of possibilities. You can do an external rotation, internal rotation. You can flex as well and extend. And we can combine any of those movements, right? So you can lift your head, your hands up with your palms together or palms facing out. And you can also extend your arms to the back like this. Okay, so we have a lot of little things that we can do, and we incorporate all those possibilities in our dance. Then we also have our thorax that we can curve and extend like this, and we can also slide side to side like that neck, and this is something we do in belly dance. We can turn this into a circle as well, and there's many other movement possibilities as well there. Then we have our hips, and here we really have a lot of range of motion, and in my experience we do have a lot more range of motion than we normally use in our daily lives. So people usually think about walking or running, but when you're dancing and even when you practice yoga, for example, you are using your joints in different angles and planes, and that is very healthy for your body, okay? So it creates a lot of movement diversity. That is very good for you. So with our hips, we can do flexion, extension. We can also do abduction, adduction, and we also have external rotation and internal rotation. So we have a lot of little things that we can do. There, it popped a little bit. That actually give us a lot of possibilities in our movements. We have also joints like the elbow and the knee, which can only do this basically. So it is through the other joints that have a lot more mobility that we can combine and access different types of movements. Finally, we have the ankle, which also has a lot of movement. It has flexion, extension, and we can also go like this, and we can rotate, make circles. Yes, okay? So there's a lot of things that we can do with those joints. And again, it's very important that we think of safety first. So if you have any concerns about any particular joint, or you've had injuries or surgery or something like that, then you always have to make sure that you are staying safe, that you let your instructor know, and if anything feels painful or weird or hot, then you need to step back a little bit. So what are we talking about when we talk about the hip joint? Let's read a definition quickly. The hip joint is primarily responsible for providing dynamic support of the weight of the upper body while facilitating force and load transmission from the axial skeleton to the lower extremities. This structure and function allow for ambulation and mobility. It is a ball and socket synovial joint that articulates the head of the femur with the acetabulum of the pelvis. And we're going to define some of those terms. Ambulation just means being able to walk around, to move around. A synovial joint or diarthrosis joins the ends of bones with a fibrous capsule. This capsule surrounds the articulating surfaces of the bones and is filled with fluid called synovial fluid. The hip joint is a ball and socket synovial joint. Ball and socket means that the rounded end of one bone fits into the cup-like shape of another. In this case, it is the femoral head of the femur that fits into the socket of the pelvic bone, or the acetabulum, which is that cup-like depression where the femoral head fits. This allows for rotation along a wide range of axes. The muscles involved in the wide range of hip movements include the adductors, which allow the leg to be adducted or move in across the medial line of the body, and the abductors, which allow the leg to extend outward. The three glutes, maximus, medius, and minimus, are also greatly involved in hip function and mobility. Related to the glutes is the piriformis muscle, from the Latin pear-shaped, which rotates the femur with hip extension and abducts the femur with hip flexion. These functions allow for that external rotation and straight legs that are key in dance forms like ballet, techniques that we use to a lesser degree in belly dance. The iliopsoas muscle is a very critical part of this complex, as it is the only muscle that attaches both in the upper body and the lower body. It originates in the lower thoracic spine and ends up in the femur. It effectively joins the upper and lower body and back to front as it runs from the spine in the back to the hips in the front. The psoas can be a devil of a muscle, as tightness can cause excruciating lower back pain. It is recommended to stretch it often, especially for those who spend long periods of time sitting, as this can shorten and thus tighten the muscle. Another muscle involved in flexion of the hip is the quadriceps, an extensor of the knee joint that is crucial for walking, running, and squatting, and which we know very well from exercising it in various forms. Finally, we have the sartorius muscle, which has a synergist or stabilizing function. It can flex, weakly abduct, and laterally rotate the thigh. All of these muscles work in conjunction to mobilize the hip joint and permit for a wide range of movements. This is why it's important to perform different types of strengthening exercises with proper form in order to avoid injury and improve function, in particular for those who lead mostly sedentary lifestyles. There are actually many more muscles involved that we didn't touch upon, but these are some of the major ones involved in most hip movements. I simply wanted to provide an overview that could help you understand your hip joint a little bit better. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video and that maybe you have learned something new, whether you're new to belly dance, are considering taking up belly dance, or are a long-time belly dance practitioner. I hope that this has been helpful in some way. I think it's important to have an awareness of our anatomy, maybe even if just basic, in order to understand how we can perform our movements with the correct alignments and the proper form in order to avoid injury and remain stronger and have better longevity and have a sustainable practice. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and I'll welcome any feedback that you might be able to provide down in the comments. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. I have a lot of content planned for the upcoming weeks. I'm really excited about it. Next video is going to be really cool. It's going to be an interview. Actually, the next couple of videos are going to be interviews with a couple of friends about really interesting topics, so stay tuned for that. And okay, I'll see you soon. Mwah.